You on this. To what extent is the Yes campaign able to, with appeals to patriotism? Well, let's hear what the minister said. The call to patriotism, history is calling us. Can we dial that grab up?
Friends, voting yes at this referendum will be a vote to unify and strengthen Australia. Voting yes will be an act of patriotism, an act of your belief in Australia.
Does that cut through against some of the community responses that you hear about special treatment, about sort of the voice offending against the notion of equality, notwithstanding the fact that we don't have equality, which is why it's just the argument for the voice itself.
So I think if the whole question was about constitutional recognition of Indigenous Australians, then there would be no problem with patriotism.
But can I just say, though, when Indigenous people were asked, what do you want constitutional recognition to look like? This is the answer.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
But you've actually got to persuade the greater majority of Australians that that is actually fair and reasonable in response to the issues that the minister wants them to address. Do we need to have constitutionally enshrined voice? And if you look at all the argument against and all the people who are campaigning against it, that's what they're all saying. No, we don't need to have it constitutionally enshrined. We can actually have constitutional recognition of, the rights of the Indigenous community. We can do all that. That can be in the Constitution. But the mechanism by which you then work with government is what they don't want enshrined, for a couple of reasons. People obviously just don't like the whole idea of it. But there is an argument which says that by putting it in the Constitution and not knowing how it's actually going to work is actually counterproductive to the whole agenda. So I think that, I hope it gets up. I've said for a very long time that I hope it gets up. My concern is that what the minister did today will not in any way pacify people who are unsure about how it's going to work, and it won't pacify them that the only things that the voice will talk about will be those 4 areas. If you look at her responses in Parliament a couple of weeks ago, where she clearly wasn't clear about what the voice was going to talk about, today is a response to that. Today is trying to overcome that. But
similarly, the Treasurer couldn't have answered, well, what's the Productivity Commission going to report on in the next 3 years? What are they going to report on?
Yes, but those things are already... They're bodies that have roles and responsibilities. What you're asking the Australian community to actually vote on is to vote for a body which they don't actually know what the roles and responsibilities are. Look, I love the idea that it's an advisory body. I love people being able to say it's an advisory body. We need to have that clear as to what the legislation will actually allow it to be.
And do you think that's the biggest issue with the...
Totally. The biggest issue is people... and I talk to all sorts of people out there, right? I talk to people who are really engaged in this debate, and they're still saying to me, how's it going to work? How's it going to be constituted? What's it going to look like, right?
Can we be really frank, though? Inala's saying there's a racist element to what people are saying, a sense of... People have said to me, well, when people fill in a form and they're asked whether they're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, there seems to be a myth in this country that somehow that entitles you to more. And there seems to be an idea that's brewing that somehow this is a trick. This whole referendum is a trick designed to give Aboriginal people, in a sense, more than their share. And I want to talk to you about this, Tom, because the minister's called this out as Trump-style politics. Janet Albrechtson writing a piece in The Australian. The real purpose is to hold power permanently based on race. It's about power forever, but they can't admit as much to voters, so they deceptively talk about generous invitations to walk hand in hand, right? So it's a secret agenda, it's all a trick. That's what the minister's talking about, isn't it? Trump-style misinformation.